over-vaccination. We're over-vaccinating, and also the vested interests that are running this whole program.
I'll just give you some background as to why I am involved in this. And I started with pet vaccination. If you've got pets, dogs, cats, you probably get them regularly vaccinated, and that's what I used to do. And back in 2008, I brought my dogs to the vet, as always, every year. And then a week later, one of my dogs got very, very ill. And subsequently, they put her down. And I started investigating this and found out that over-vaccination of pets is a major issue. They were over-vaccinating pets grossly. And I got a lot of coverage in the newspapers on this. Choice took up the story. It was acknowledged that pets are being over-vaccinated. And so that got me down this rabbit hole. And what I discovered was what the veterinary experts were warning against over-vaccinating pets. They said we've got to reduce vaccination of pets because it's dangerous. And it was really interesting to me because I thought, they're warning to reduce vaccination of dogs and cats. Meanwhile, vaccination of people is just going through the roof. You know, the children's schedule now is out of sight, and most people in the community just don't realise how many vaccinations children are getting now, and revaccinations. It's an enormous vaccine load that they are copying now. And now we're at the stage with COVID-19. So this is a major issue. COVID-19 vaccines are being rolled out now. And you really got to think about the name of those vaccines. They're called COVID-19 vaccines. Not SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, but COVID-19 vaccines. So why is that? Because they're supposed to be reducing the symptoms that come from SARS-CoV-2. So when you think about that, you've got to say, well, why should people who aren't at risk of SARS-CoV-2, of serious symptoms, why should they have the vaccine? But at this stage, all around the world, they're planning to vaccinate the whole world population. And you wonder, how has that happened? How come they're going to plan to vaccinate the whole population of the world against a virus which isn't a threat to most people? If you think about the figures, in the last, say, 13 months, 2.7 million people, their deaths have been attributed to COVID-19. That is in a global population of 7.8 billion people, where 59 million people are expected to die every year anyway. You think about that, 2.7 million people, and we know a lot of those deaths, they've been cobbling them together from everywhere. They wanted to put all sorts of deaths down to beat up the numbers. They've really beaten up the case numbers, and we know the cases are very dodgy because the test is very dodgy. So we've got to think about that. Who came up with this idea of vaccinating the whole world? We're here now, it's a year later, we've got to start looking back at this and say, how did this happen? This is unbelievable. This is over the top, gone mad. And we know it was Bill Gates led the race for the coronavirus vaccines. He is the person who's behind putting all the money into vaccines, getting money out of world leaders, has driven this whole campaign for coronavirus vaccines. All the money that this has taken, it's taken money away from other areas that are important, and it's all been put into this area now. You just think of the billions of dollars that have been spent on testing. It's gone completely mad. So now we have to start asking the questions, how did this happen? One of the things we can ask, or a major thing we can ask, is about the ethics committees who approved the trials for the vaccines. You say, why did you approve a trial for these vaccines when they're not necessary for younger people? And they use younger people in the trials. So that's something that I'm going to pursue now, particularly in England, following up the AstraZeneca Oxford trial that's run by Andrew Pollard. I'm going to ask, why did this even happen? It shouldn't have happened. And now they've got trials happening in children. Johnson & Johnson are running trials in infants. So is Moderna is now starting these trials. AstraZeneca have got these trials happening. This is a nightmare. You've got children who aren't at risk of this virus are being set up for a lifetime of coronavirus vaccination. It's madness. And in England, a third of the population has now been vaccinated. That is, wow, about 20 million people. That's mainly elderly people, but they're planning to do the whole population. A lot of these people haven't had their second dose yet, and they're now planning a third dose this year. I mean, wow, the third dose they're planning in autumn. What's going to happen in the future? Are we going to wake up every morning and just take our vaccine of the day? It is just, there's no planning to this. It's just gone mad. We have to ask, how has this happened? So now with the COVID-19 rollout happening in Australia, you all have to ask the doctors and the politicians and everything and say, why is everybody being made to have this vaccine when most people aren't at risk? And if they say herd immunity or whatever, we'll say, apparently these vaccines don't prevent infection, they don't prevent transmission. So what sort of can of worms are we opening up here? It is major. So that's my main focus at the moment. Ask the question, why are people having to have COVID-19 vaccines when most people aren't at risk of COVID-19?
Exactly.